I've never done this before, but we pulled up Dynasty Fantasy Football Reddit, and I wanted to see what the most pressing issues were this week in Dynasty Fantasy Football. And honestly, there are some great conversations, and I'm probably going to spend more time on there just figuring out what people are talking about. The first question that we have is, what are we going to do with fourth round picks? Now, not just that, oh my gosh, I have the 404. What should I plan with it? Obviously, if you only have one pick, you already know what to do. You keep it. If you have an opportunity to get a deal done that you like, you'll use it as a throw-in and understand that the probability you hit on an individual player in that round is going to be incredibly low. But this issue is, I tanked this past season and we have 9 picks this year, including the 401, 410, 412. This will be my first rookie draft, and I'm curious what to do with these late round picks that we're throwing in traits. These players will most likely be long shots, and I'd rather bundle them with other picks players to upgrade and consolidate my roster or even move up in the draft. But they hold very little value. I'm curious how you all leverage your late round picks. Are they as worthless as I feel? And essentially the issue is, if you have too many fourth round picks, it's not as easy as, okay, I'll just draft 2 random guys and maybe hopefully one of them turns into something. If you get into the position where you have too many fourth rounders, it's a tough spot to be in because we understand that about 99% of the time, that fourth round pick is going to be absolutely nothing. I love the top comment here. It says, easy peasy, just draft the next Puka. Obviously being sarcastic. If you could do that every year, you would accumulate all the fourth round picks in the world. But using Puka as an example, you have to understand that over the past few seasons, how many players have come from the fourth round to actually make a difference in Dynasty Fantasy Football. You have Puka and Tank Dell. That's really about it that we have seen over the past 3 seasons from the rounds 3 and 4 range that come out and actually turn into significant impact players. Now, of course, I'm probably exaggerating saying those are the only guys over the past, say, 2 to 3 years from rounds 3 and 4 and 5 that really make a difference. But nonetheless, even if there are a couple names that I'm forgetting, you're still looking at an expected hit rate of about less than 5%. So if you have too many fourth round picks, it's a tough spot in that you can't roster all of them. You're not going to have the roster spots in a lot of different formats. So what was very interesting in that what we read here is essentially someone saying, worst case scenario, if you're not going to be able to roster the guy that you're looking at the 411, might as well just go ahead and take that pick and sit it for a fourth round pick down the line. Now, of course, plan A would always be to take that pick, use it as a sweetener in another deal, just to throw in to get a trade that you really want done. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. If you can't do that, you get to your rookie draft, you're on the clock in the 4th round, you have too many picks, you don't really have the roster spot for the guy that you're about to take, might as well take the 410, trade it for a future 4th down the road, and just unlock a roster spot for you this year, and then maybe you can use that 4th round pick next year as a throw-in to get a deal done. If not, you can just go ahead, take some swings, try to find the next Puka. Just understand it is damn near impossible. Now, I will say, maybe I'm a little bit biased when I say that because I did not find Puka this year. Trust me, I wish that I did, and it's embarrassing that I did not. But yeah, it's much, much harder than it looks. Now, going over to our next question, this is something that I used to make the mistake about when I first started playing Dynasty Fantasy Football. Essentially, I'm new to prospect evaluation, pretty much just reading and watching whatever I can at this point. Where will Neighbors and Odunze fall in the wide receiver rankings in comparison to players like Addison and JSN? Now, a lot of people underneath this are talking about where they stacked up as prospects, and it really is, I don't want to say a useless exercise, but an exercise that you should not take at face value. Because if we're going to go through and we are going to compare, say, Jackson Smith-Njigba as a prospect to someone like Odunze, all of a sudden you may get in the mindset of, oh my gosh, well, they're very, very similar prospects. Let me go ahead and let me take that 106 that I was going to draft Rome with, and let me just trade it for JSN in a 2nd round pick if they are comparable players in the first place. But where that goes wrong is you have to understand when you get another year of data on one of these individual players, while their prospect profile is still very important, and trust me, I'm not ranking JSN as we are Quentin Johnson. I still think that JSN has a shot at being successful despite failing his rookie season. I still loved him coming out of Ohio State. We do need to be realistic, and you need to look at the new updated range of outcomes once we have that additional year of data. So we can sit here and we can do the exercise. Okay, let's rank these 4 guys as prospects. And just in case we were doing that, I think we would go Neighbors, Odunze, Jameson, Addison. But that's not necessarily how we should be ranking them in Dynasty Fantasy Football. Now I think you should be going Neighbors, maybe Addison, maybe Rome, depending on landing spots, and then JSN a tier below. Now, let's go over to our next post that we are going to be looking at. Jameson Williams looked legit today. Low volume, high efficiency. I've been on the outs with Jameson, but today has taught me that this dude is the real deal. Has your opinion changed on Jameson Williams today? Now, obviously, this was posted when Jameson went out there and scored 2 touchdowns against the San Francisco 49ers. And yeah, if you're a Lions fan, maybe Jameson Williams actually turns into something, right? I mean, this is a wide receiver that people had a lot of hope for, blah, blah, blah. I never really loved him as a prospect, but nonetheless, I mean, having a playoff game where you score 2 touchdowns and look great, that is exciting from a real life perspective. But to take a step back, you don't want to be overreacting from a Dynasty Fantasy Football perspective. This is a wide receiver that through the first 2 years of his NFL career, I understand, obviously, rookie season, we shouldn't really be counting. The man was injured, but nonetheless, he had fewer than 400 receiving yards in the first 2 years of his career. The expectation for him at this point is that he is not a difference-making player in Dynasty Fantasy Football. Now, maybe, just maybe, if you are playing a league where you start 11 guys, it's a 14-team format where you're going, Mason, come on, man. I'm starting 6 wide receivers every single week, and it's difficult to find the depth there. Yeah, maybe Jameson Williams turns into something that you can use down the road. I mean, however, if we're just getting a price check in on Jameson on flogfantasy.com right now, I mean, we can look at both the community rankings as well as the expert rankings. The community rankings, Jameson Williams is currently at 113. This is right in line with like Hollywood Brown, Calvin Ridley. This is right behind guys like Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and it values him essentially equal to a mid-second round pick. If I could take Jameson Williams and sell him for an early second round pick in a Superflex league, I'm doing that in an absolute heartbeat. A mid-second round pick, it is going to be up to you. I may do it, but I wouldn't fault you if you wanted to take the swing with some upside. But it does look like maybe there are still people out there that when you have that big playoff game, you can try to go out there and sell a guy high with. And of course, if you ever wanted to check out the community rankings on flogfantasy.com, the community rankings are actually completely free for everybody. You don't even need an account. You can pull them up. Really should be used as a tool that you can just get a fair price check on a player, right? See how everybody else is valuing someone like Jameson Williams. Of course, you can find my rankings on flogfantasy.com, all the rankings of pretty much everybody you watch on YouTube, plus all our premium content, plus our Dynasty trade calculator, the whole 9 yards. If you use promo code FLOCK, you're going to get 30% off any subscription. Plus, with promo code FLOCK, yours truly will break down your Dynasty Fantasy Football team in a podcast. But let's go over and look at our next post, which is actually about Puka, that guy we were talking about earlier that sadly I was not smart enough to go all in on. Sadly, I was an idiot and faded him. But nonetheless, this is a post that says, why to sell Puka now after looking at the premium PFF statistics? And I'm sitting here, I'm looking at my chops, right? I'm saying, okay, I don't have Puka in any Dynasty leagues. Someone, please tell me life's going to be okay. Let me know that I am still going to survive in 2024. And then we read this long post. We get a sense of what this is all about. He's 11th in drops in the league. Almost top 10 worst in drop rate. Looking further, he's 41st in catch rate and 38th in contested catch rate. Given he's getting throws from Stafford of all people, I just can't see that getting better, and I feel like it's exceptionally more likely it gets worse. So y'all know I love metrics. Y'all know that's what I try to present in every single video because I can put it on the screen. I can try to prove my thesis to y'all when we're talking about numbers, when we are using metrics. And I did an in-depth video breaking down a key metric such as drop percentage, drop rate, and just overall drops about 2 years ago. Now, I understand that when you first get into fantasy football or just watching the NFL, it really stands out, right? Like your wide receiver goes down the field, he drops the ball, you go, oh my gosh, that could have been a 60-yard receiving touchdown. This guy's a bum. I am so pissed. I 100% understand where you were coming from, but you need to take a step back with a couple different things. One, you need to understand that he was good enough to draw the target. He was good enough to generate separation and get open, and we just didn't bring it in. So already checking those first two boxes, he's a step ahead of the wide receiver that did not get open in the first place, that didn't draw the target in the first place. So I would almost say a drop is better than not getting thrown the ball. And I know that is a crazy thing to say, maybe blah, blah, blah. Nonetheless, moving on to the next thing. If you look at drop rate from a year-to-year perspective, it's a very small sample, and typically it is extremely volatile where 1 year is not going to predict the next. Now, you have your sticky statistics, right? The things that we love looking at, such as yards per route run. That's something that we love. Your target share in that offense, that's something that we love as well. Those are going to be predictive of each other going forward into the future. But drop rate just is not that. And I actually love one of the top comments that you have under this post. It's an interesting perspective, but he had 13 drops as a rookie on 113 catchable targets. Tyreek was second in the NFL with 12 drops on 131 catchable targets. I think we want Tyreek Hill. Obviously, it's not too much of an issue. What I find interesting is that 2021 Jamar Chase had 11 drops on 95 catchable targets and 10 drops on 99 catchable targets in 2022. Now I understand Chase the different targets, but the point is drops don't stop targets necessarily, because targets are earned by separation, trust, and scheme. I literally could not have said that better myself. Love that top comment. I 100% agree. I would love to come out here, spread some FUD on Puka, and try to buy him low in my own Dynasty Fantasy Football leagues. But the reality is that's probably just not going to happen. Drops aren't that big of a deal. Now, going over to the next post, just an interesting thought experiment here. A post that says, which elite asset is getting traded this offseason? So essentially goes through and does a lot of research on the guys that got traded in years past, right? Like Jalen Ramsey, DJ Moore, Stephon Gilmore, Aaron Rodgers, and CMC in 2023. Now, if we are sitting here speculating, I will say I have never been good enough to sit here in January and tell you who is going to get traded 5 months from now. Look in the comments. You have some funny comments. Bijan Robinson traded to Pittsburgh to reunite with Arthur Smith and put me in purgatory. And then Saquon Barkley to the Ravens in a franchise tag sign and trade. That's maybe a little bit more realistic. Obviously, you're having to look at the contract situation with Lamar Jackson and maybe what that cap looks like. But I think the guys that you just need to essentially put on the watch list are going to be those veterans that aren't particularly on contending teams, that have 1 year left in their deal and they are owed a significant amount of money. Maybe some guys like this include DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting thing to watch play out. It's just very difficult to know exactly which direction those guys will be going. Now, this last question is a very nuanced one and something that we are definitely going to see change the landscape over the next few years. But it says, as older quarterbacks become more often, how will this impact Superflex drafts? So I didn't really understand what this post was about, right? I'm like sitting here going, Brady's out of the league, Rivers out of the league, Matt Ryan's out of the league, Big Ben's out of the league. Are you kidding? Quarterbacks seem to be getting younger. But then you read it, due to NIL deals, quarterbacks are staying for longer. I imagine this might be a good thing long-term, as there'll be less flash-in-the-pan prospects. What do you think now, and does age play in a factor when you look to draft a quarterback? So with the quarterback position in particular, I am always one to say, we can't sit here and accurately predict what quarterbacks will be hits and bust at the NFL level. The guys who get paid millions of dollars to make that decision cannot accurately sit there and make that call. So what instead we try looking at is we try to use those NFL scouting departments. We try to combine that with the situation that they're stepping into, if they have rushing upside or not, understanding how that is going to impact their fantasy football production. I know we all want to sit here and we all want to say, well, no, Mason, come on, man. I knew Bryce Young was a bum. I knew CJ Stroud was the guy. The reality of the situation is probably did not know that. I did not know that, right? I don't necessarily think too many people did. And yes, if you did, congrats, you maybe just got lucky. But nonetheless, I am not sitting here and taking into account too much the age of the quarterback when drafting them. I mean, obviously, if you're going to be looking at someone like, I don't know, Jaden Daniels this year, maybe that scares you off of him. But on the other hand, wide receiver, you can actually build out predictive metric models, understanding that there is a difference between prototypes of wide receivers that enter the NFL that are going to be better and worse for fantasy. You can't just draft wide receivers off NFL draft capital, or you're going to be overdrafting Henry Ruggs. You're going to be overdrafting John Ross. We all understand that. And in that model, a big thing that we always take into account is if a player is an early declare or not. If you've been an early declare at the wide receiver position through the past pretty much 15 years, it has exponentially increased your expected hit rate at the next level. So if you come out as a true junior, more times than not, you are going to be a more impressive prospect than the guy that comes out as a senior or a redshirt senior. However, with NIL deals, this is all of a sudden going to be something that we need to reevaluate with our model, right? Emeka Puka going back to school, maybe it made sense for him. Maybe he's sitting there going, you know what? I'm going to go to Ohio State. I'm going to get paid 7 figures to stay in college, stay with the ladies. And at the end of the day, I'm maybe going to get higher in the NFL draft next season. So I don't necessarily think we need to be evaluating our quarterback prospect analysis a little bit different just because they're NIL deals. I wasn't really taking into account age too much anyway. Go look at Joe Burrow. But nonetheless, I do think at the wide receiver position, at the running back position, age has been a massive factor that we have looked at in years past. And this will be something that we have to continuously evaluate over the next few seasons as the overall landscape changes. But I think that's all I have for y'all. Really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Of course, if you want to get access to my Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings, the Dynasty rankings of all your favorite creators on YouTube, all their premium content as well, plus our Dynasty Trade Calculator that takes into account your exact league settings so it can be the most accurate Dynasty Trade Calculator you use. And also, if you want to get yours truly to break down your Dynasty Fantasy Football team with the personalized podcast, find that link to flockfantasy.com in the description, comment section. Promo code FLOCK, going to get you 30% off any subscription, and yours truly will break down your team. But I think that's all I have for you. I really do appreciate you, and I really hope we get to see you out with the video tomorrow.